Hi, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you in the German line. This is the Tier 10, the tank destroyer, the JgPz E100. And as always, we have a complete guide, starting with the tech spec, and we look at blitzhanger.com. And in this review, I have a special treat for you. We have two awesome games with this tank, brought to you, not by me this time, but actually by one of my clan colleagues. Now, this tank is really a two-trick pony. It has gun, which is awesome, and it has its frontal armour. And that's more or less it. In terms of the gun, it is a monster gun. It's the second biggest in Blitz at 170 millimeters after the Death Star, and it is 170 millimeters of pain with monster alpha rolls. If we look at the gun, the penetration on it is amazing. It has 85 millimeters of pen with HE, giving you 1200 plus alpha rolls each time. That 85 millimeters is going to go through all light medium tanks and even the back of some heavy tanks. It's just incredible pen, and it's going to do all sorts of damage. As I said, 170 millimeters of pain. Now, this tank, as I said though, is a two-trick pony, and one of those tricks is the gun. So we will maximize velocity on the gun, making it 1200 meters per second, which is not great. So therefore you really need to use the supercharge, because without the supercharge you're going to lack penetration. As we've discussed before, muzzle velocity is the key to penetration and the key to penetration loss over distance. Gun depression is pretty good, but this second aspect of the tank is that it's slow moving. So therefore you will play in a pocket of the map. You have small map engagement. It also means that your initial move on this tank is key. Getting into a position where you can use that gun at the start is key. Why? Because you can't move around the map. It's so slow and cumbersome. But here's the second trick: monster frontal armor. It's just wow. Now, the lower plate is a bit weaker. I say weaker, it's not weak, but it is weaker, but it's tough to hit. And also it means you have to go in front of this big gun, which nobody wants to do. So front on, particularly if you can go hull down, you are going to rock in this tank. The relative armor stats are just ridiculous on the sides. Look at those side numbers on the relative thickness of the armor. It's just incredible. You will bounce shots all day long in this tank. Plus on the side it also has spaced armor. That gives you protection for the tracks, which means that you can actually run the engine accelerator if you want to. You don't have to run the two repair kits, because the tracks are quite protected by this spaced armor above. What we see here when we look at the external modules, that the tracks are pretty well protected, difficult to hit, so therefore you can run that engine accelerator. And of course, as we said, the first position that you get into in this tank is key. Plus that is the area of the map you're going to stay in for the whole game. So therefore using the accelerator to get you into that position is probably a good idea. And so this is one of the few tanks where I would recommend using the engine accelerator rather than a second repair kit. If you can hide the lower plate in this tank, as you can see here, and go hull down, you will just be virtually untouchable. I'd say almost impregnable, but this is difficult to say, of course, because you can always be penned, but it is extremely difficult to pen this tank front on, especially if you have the lower plate hidden. In terms of tactics, front line, this tank does well. Long range sniping can do well, but you need to know how to use deflection shooting. So if you haven't watched the tank destroyer guide that we have on channel, please do watch that. It's key to playing tanks like this very well. It explains your role and the skills you need and what you should be doing in a tank destroyer to maximize the benefit for your team of that type of tank within the game. Again, just look at those numbers on the pen and the damage. This gun is phenomenal. But it does have a very long reload, as you can see, so therefore you need to make your shots count. Aiming is maiming. Never more so important in this tank. This and the Death Star, big alpha rolls but long reloads, and you need to make those shots count. Now, this is F Mondial from 101 clan, my clanmate, one of our Super Unicum players, and he is lethal in this tank, really lethal. And you're going to see a monster game here where he ends up 5v1. He doesn't get a mastery badge. I think it's a first class mastery badge. He doesn't get the golden M, but he's left 5v1 in this, and you will just see the strengths of this tank. Now, going back to what we discussed in the tech spec, this tank is slow moving, as you can see. It takes an age to get into position. He's taking his time here. He's trying to decide where best to go in this tank, because once he's in a position, he knows it's going to be difficult for him to get out of that position, to go to another position on the map. So therefore he wants to make sure that this position is right from the start. And this is key to this tank, adopting the correct position from the start. I said that you will play in a pocket of the map, and that's a very good expression, I think. You will play only in one small area of this map, in a pocket of the map. Maybe you might play in 30% of the total map in this tank. So therefore that limits your ability to influence a game and the number of tanks that you can engage. In many ways those tanks have to come to you. You cannot go to them, and you need your team to spot them up. And that is one of the drawbacks of this tank. Your ability to engage and to influence the map is limited. And as I said early on, it's a two-trick pony. It has that frontal armor and it has that big gun, and that's it, nothing else. And you need to utilize those skills. That frontal armor, as you can see there, look at that bounce. And by the way, one aspect we didn't discuss yet in the tech spec is that with this armor, this tank actually is a very good brawler. If you can protect your sides and back in this tank, you can brawl it out with the best of them. And in the next game we're going to see, you will be able to observe a monster brawl in this tank where it just absolutely pummels the enemy. And I think it clears 3 of the enemy tanks while at the same time capturing a base. And that's what you can do in this tank. It's good for brawling, it's good for going front line. You saw there a few seconds ago another bounce, another massive bounce on the armor, on the side armor, and that's what this tank can do. If you're protecting the sides and the back in particular, particularly that crew hatch at the back, you will bounce shots all day long. And that is one of the key tricks of this two-trick pony, apart from the gun, is that armor that will allow you to bounce those shots. Now, you can see what we were talking about earlier in this tank, how difficult it is to get around the map, and how little influence you can have while you're moving because you're so slow. Even for a TD, this tank is slow and has limited ability to move around the map. You can see how long it's taking him to get from one side of the map to the other here. But the movement when he does it is crucial because it enables him to bring that gun into play and to start doing some damage. He's just done 1.4k damage so far, but now he's going to start racking up the damage. Look at that shot there, that is just phenomenal. He gets a bounce off the mouse there. You're not going to pen him when he's got his side angles onto you like that. And then look at this, clears him off with a HE round while getting another bounce. Really fantastic play there, and shows you the strength of this tank. He's going to catch one here from the object, but then again switches up to HE and clears him off. And then again, this is one of the key things you can do when you have a gun this big. It's also with the grill and also with the Death Star. When tanks have 300 or less HP, you can just put a HE round into them and clear them off and not worry about penning armor. The splash damage just clears them off. Again, another massive bounce there from the big gun of the Waffle Tractor, and he's just bounced probably, I think, his total hit pool point already, maybe more than his total hit pool points in bounces. And again, we discussed before in various guides how important game theory is and how important bounces are, because they have a double whammy effect. Not only are you conserving your own hit points, but you are actually conserving those of your entire team, because a shot that bounces off you is a shot that is not being fired at your teammates and not doing damage to your teammates. Although in this case that's somewhat irrelevant because all his teammates are dead and he's left in a 5v1 situation. That's the 4th kill of a 5v1, so it's not just a Klobanov, it's a Klobanov plus plus, or a Klobanov plus 2. And this last guy here, really don't know what he was thinking. Maybe he thought the gun was facing away from him, but really driving out in front of a gun like that is really not what you want to do. And now there you see first class mastery badge, 5 kills, 5v1 situation that he wins, does almost 4.5k of direct damage and more damage with setting the enemy on fire, etc. So just really good game, and shows what this tank can do and how powerful it is and how excellent that gun is. But I think the key point to draw from that is one of the tricks of this 2-trick pony is the armor and just how many bounces he got, which is pretty impressive. Now in this game he actually loses, but he does do, I think, 7.2k of damage in this game, which is just amazing. He gets a mastery badge even though he loses. He also, by the way, gets engaged in a massive brawl in this tank, which he comes out of on top, clears 3 tanks, and really does a great job for his team while also simultaneously capturing a base. Now this may seem like an unusual position to go in this tank, but bringing this big gun into play here, using this slight ridge here, allows him to just protect his lower plate. So he's going to semi-hull down position here, and he is going to bounce shots all day long on the front here against the enemy, and allows him to bring his gun into play. Plus it stopped them coming up this middle channel as well. So now we see that one of the limitations of not just this particular TD, but of all TDs, is that you need your teammates to spot up the enemy for you. You need your teammates to allow you to bring your gun into play. So he's now moving up. He's going to go to a more traditional point on Falls Creek where you would bring a TD or a heavy tank towards C. And he decides at this point that he needs to take some decisive action himself. And this is the start of this monster brawl. You can see he gets 1 bounce there on the side. Bit of a ram, keeping his frontal armor face onto the enemy. And we just see that he's going to get several bounces here, clears him off, gets another bounce from the E100. And this is what I'm talking about here in terms of the ability of this tank to brawl. It's just going to bounce all day long if you can keep the front of the tank facing the enemy. Now here comes another monster gun into this brawl, and this is just brawl of the century. Massive guns on both sides, massive tanks on both sides. The E100 and the JgPz 100, 2 of the biggest tanks in tier 10. Look at this for skill. He is just causing all sorts of problems for them, and making sure he's bringing his gun into the game. He is firing around every time he reloads, and he's making it almost impossible for the enemy to get shots onto him by keeping his gun facing toward them, keeping the frontal armor towards them. We can see there they clear off the E100. Now it's him versus the JgPz E100. Just a monster brawl. Monster brawl. Again, look at that bounce. That side, keeping the side to him there, he just didn't give him anything to shoot with. He's now up on to almost 6k damage, and it's just, he's just, again, look at this angle he's giving this guy. He is giving him nothing, and he's so close, by the way, that if he fires a HE round at him, he's going to damage himself as well. It clears him off. And I just think, like, let's just have a look at this brawl again. I'm going to give an instant replay because this is just really impressive stuff. Just the angles that he takes, the tank positioning here, he is not giving these guys any easy shots. One of the things that we didn't discuss thus far is shot selection. So bounces a shot there off the E100 and clears the other enemy tank, so that he's clearing one gun out of the brawl rather than firing into E100 and leaving the other gun in the brawl. That's not what you want to do, right? So again, shot selection, making the shots count as much as possible when you are in this brawl situation. Get this here, this shot selection, right through the tracks, big alpha roll, plus tracks to E100 so that he's stuck there. Now we see he sees the other E100 coming in, so again presenting the armor to this guy He's angled on to both the E100 and the JgPz E100, not giving him any easy shots. Now he sees the JgPz coming down. He moves forward now after he puts this round into him. Puts a round right into the side to him, then moves forward. Now the JgPz can't get a shot on him, it has no turret. So the JgPz is not able to do any damage to him. Plus it's presenting its back to the object, so the object can pen him from there. And while he can't shoot his peer, the JgPz can't shoot him, but he can put a massive alpha round into this E100. And just look at this, right into the side of the turret. Takes his time, bam, massive alpha roll into him. Moves forward again. And again, look at the angle he's adopting here when the E100 comes back onto him. Gets another bounce there. Backing up again, swiveling, pivot, using the tracks. Now he's blocked almost 3k damage, 2.72k of damage blocked already. Bit of a bump, and then again carefully chooses his shot. Another big alpha roll, and the E100 is cleared. And again, another big gun coming in now. This is the actual fourth tank he's engaging. And this is just pretty incredible stuff. I mean, like, now he's against this full health JgPz. Takes one here. But, you know, he's just able to put in massive round here. Takes his time. Puts a nice round into him. He's well over 5k damage now. And he is just, you know, causing all sorts of problems. He's engaged 4 tanks here from the enemy side, cleared 3 of them already, just about to clear the other one, presenting all sorts of angles, making it easy for his allies as well. He's presented easy shots on the 2 JgPzs on the E100 to his allies. Right? He's allowed them to fire into the back and the sides of these guys all day long, and then last shot clears them off. 4 tanks cleared. Massive brawl. I mean, one of the most impressive brawls I've seen in a while. And really just great brawling skills there, and shows the effectiveness of this tank. What you can do with this tank if you play to its strengths, which are basically using that big gun, but also using those angles on that armor, being front on, using those angles to create as much difficulty for the enemy as possible. And you saw there something which is not so talked about when you're talking about specific tanks, but by his engagement, the front on of engagement of all of those enemy tanks, he really did help his allies by presenting them easy targets, easy shots into the back and sides of those heavily armored beasts. So really great team play from him as well. He's not just managing his own tank very well, but he's also managing the entire enemy team and shot selection for his allies. So really great team play there. Something which we don't always talk about so much, but how the decisions you make actually make it easier, much easier for your teammates. His teammates don't do him too much help in this game at all, it has to be said. Just look at this shot here. This is what we're talking about with this gun. I mean, I know the poor Waffle Tractor doesn't have any armor at all, but just look at that massive alpha roll there, and he's way over 7k of damage now. And he just doesn't have time. I mean, look here, if his teammates had been able to help him out here, if they could even just take out this last enemy tank, it would have been a win for him. Unfortunately, I don't have the screenshots of the mastery badge there, but 7.2k damage and mastery badge. And this is something he put up in the clan. You can't always take out, you can't always carry the trash. Sometimes the bag bursts. We don't like to disparage other players on this page, on this channel, but I thought that was funny. And the music, by the way, was Gustav Holst from the Planet Sweets, Mars, the Bringer of War, in case you're interested, which I thought was quite apt for this tank and those games. Now let's have a recap. This is a 2-trick pony. It has just those 2 things, the frontal armor and, well, the side armor, of course, as well, and that gun. Therefore, it's difficult to play. And your first position in this tank is key because you cannot get around the map. That's obvious. You will play therefore in a limited pocket. So think about this before you move, because where you go first is probably more or less where you're going to stay for the game. So analysing the setup is critical, seeing what tanks are on your team, what tanks are on the enemy team, and therefore choosing the position accordingly, because you need to get that gun in play. That 170mm monster needs to be firing and doing damage. If you're away from the enemy, there's not much you can do. Frontal armour is just amazing, and you can have complete confidence in it. It will bounce shots all day long, particularly if you angle it up. Use supercharge and refine gun on this, because you need to maximize pen, you need to maximize muzzle velocity, because without it the muzzle velocity is very low. Obviously select enhanced armor, get many more bounces on this thing. You'll get steel walls all day long in this tank if you play it correctly. Angle up when there's shots coming in, as you saw him do in both those games. Maximize those relative armor numbers and you will be very happy with the bounces you get. It has a slow reload though, right? So aiming is maiming. You need to make those shots count, because if you miss, there's a very long time to wait until the next round is in the chamber. So make those shots count. And as I said, watch the tank destroyer guide that we have on channel. It will help you with shot selection, deflection shooting, and other skills which are essential for playing tank destroyers well. So, with all that said, I guess all that remains for me to say is thanks for watching. Cheers Mush, I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you found it useful, and pants off.